Can you all see the main slide?
That's spot on.
Perfect. Okay. Well, first and foremost, thank you for inviting me along this evening. A real privilege to be able to spread the word, if you like. What I'm hoping I'll do today and this evening is to inspire you guys so that when you wake up tomorrow morning, you actually view and value water differently to what you did today. So I have a range of statistics, stories. We're going to look at embedded water to start with. We're going to look at the global water issue, and then we're going to narrow down and look at the UK and what can we do as individuals. You'll hear me talk a lot about personal responsibility, so that's very much features in the slides today. So we've just seen from the IPCC a report. Just a second, Paul, the deck's not moving on. There we go. So we've had the largest ever report on climate change. It looks at 14,000 papers, and it paints a stark reality for global climate change. Some changes, like sea levels, are irreversible. In recent years, we've seen, the world seeing record-breaking temperatures, raging wildfires, floods and droughts. But what the IPCC have said that there's an opportunity for us to get a grip of this if we act quickly and we can stabilize temperatures. But to do that, what we all need to do is very much play our part. And, Greta Thunberg, love her or loathe her, I think what she has done, she's really brought climate change to the front of the agenda so that Joe Public has got a much greater understanding of some of the urgency about this. And what Greta is saying is it's a simple message. She doesn't want us to talk about it anymore. She wants us to get on and act and sort things out. She talks about the globe being at a tipping point, and in about 10 years, the climate taking over, where we'll no longer be in control of our climate. There'll be a chain reaction, and potentially that's the end of the start of the end of mankind. So we have to make choices as individuals. We've all got 100% responsibility, and we've all also got 100% ability to make the right choices. So that responsibility sits with us. And one of the first things I want to talk to you about is our throwaway society. DEFRA tells us that 26 million tonnes of waste is produced in the UK each year. 12 million tonnes, just 45% is recycled. So 14 million is going to landfill. It's a staggering number. And we are slightly behind Wales. Wales recycles 57%, Northern Ireland 46%, and Scotland is lagging slightly behind us at 43%. Leaders such as Germany, Austria, and South Korea, they're managing to recycle 60 to 70% of domestic household waste. UK, what's quite worrying is that we are only recycling 3% more today than we were in 2010. And, put simply, they don't make things like they used to. I'm in danger of sounding like an old fuddy-duddy there, but they don't make things like they used to. I remember my dad used to get his soldering iron out and repair things. These days, stuff just gets chucked away. And manufacturers are actually producing products which are designed to last shorter periods, because that's what we demand as consumers. We're after the next more modern, the more flash, the brighter, the more shiny, next new fashionable item. And that's created a throwaway society. Now, I'll put this slide in because of the session I attended last night, actually. It got me thinking. And this is about embedded water. I would just like to try and put into the chat, which of these products do you think takes the least amount of water to produce? If you could start putting that into the chat function, please. And by the way, Peter, I'm not for some reason, Paul rather, for some reason I'm unable to see the chat function on my second screen. I can just see the people's icons.
Yeah, I'll have a look for you.
Great, thanks.
When something comes through. So we're saying, we start at the top here. Bags least. Smartphone or bag, they're the ones that are most popular, Glenn.
Yeah, okay, well, bag is the correct answer. So it takes 220 litres to produce 1,000 bags. What do people think is perhaps next?
What's next?
So again, if you can just pop that into the chat. I've managed to get that up and running now so I can see the chat. So someone's saying, they're all saying phone, okay. Well, next actually is a cotton t-shirt, just under 2,500 litres of water to produce a single cotton t-shirt. And hot on the heels of that, on the back of our discussion about food last night, is a beef burger, 2,500 litres. So very similar to a single t-shirt. What do people think is the next item? Okay, so David's saying a phone, Caroline, phone, then jeans, phone. Actually, it's a pair of jeans. So 8,000 litres nearly of water, which leaves a smartphone nearly 12,000 litres of water to produce a smartphone. And a lot of that is to do with the PCBs and the electronics and the manufacturing process of those. So I thought that was just on the back of last night. I would include that in the deck. I wouldn't normally go through that, but let's march on. Thanks for your input. It is shocking. Absolutely agree with that. Now then, another question for you. How many bags for life do you think, on average, the average UK household uses in a year? Again, if you can pop that into chat. There's no such thing as a daft guess, because when I found this out, I was staggered.
Is there a prize for the closest, Glenn?
Maybe, maybe not. So we've got 4 to 6, 15, 4. So fairly low numbers. We've actually got 20, 10. On average, sorry, I've moved the slide forward too quick. On average, 57 bags per household. And if that's not bad enough, that's an increase from 2019. So that was a 2020 stat. That's an increase of 3 per household from an average of 54 recorded in 2019. So it's going in the wrong direction. Another absolute shocker. And here's an even bigger shocker. And this is one of my bugbears: bottled water. Last year, 7.7 billion single-use plastic bottles were sold in the UK, and we guzzled our way through 2.2 billion litres of bottled water. Now, what's staggering is 42% of the bottled water purchased in the UK was taken home and consumed in the house, where we have tap water. No, it's some of the best water in the world, but 42% of those 7.7 billion consumed in the house. That's 21 million bottles, single-use PET bottles every day. Imagine Wembley football pitch. You put, if you can see me, you put one of these, a half-litre bottle, on the edge of the corner flag, and you layer them across the pitch. You would get 1.7 million bottles on the pitch. You put another layer on, then another, and you build a tower 514 metres, that's 200 metres taller than the Shard in London, or just about 30 metres taller than the World Trade Center when they were standing. Quite a staggering use of water. And, you know, think about the cost. A litre of tap water costs about a penny. A bottle of water, you know, if you're on the M1 or the A1, you may pay as much as £2. In the supermarkets, £1. It's absolutely crazy. And here's the real rub with this. It takes 2,000 times the amount of energy to produce a litre of water in a plastic bottle than it does a litre of tap water. And it takes 3 to 4 times the amount of water to produce the bottle than you can actually hold in the bottle itself. So it's absolute madness. And then you've got to worry a little bit about face masks. 129 billion face masks being used globally every month. That's 3 million a minute. And I'm sure you guys will have seen them on the road, on the pavements, in the bushes, and they're made from microfiber plastics. So you've got to wonder, is this the next plastic problem that's going to come and bite us on the backsides? Imagine a beach, imagine a lovely holiday that you're going to go on, and you may think of an image like this. Well, actually, the reality is very, very different. This is what we are seeing around the globe: beaches, oceans, mangrove swamps, on the side of the pavement, on verge of highways in the central reservation. Plastic is everywhere. Scientists have suggested that at the current rate, there'll be more plastic in our oceans than fish by the time 2050 is here. And that's without the explosion of microfiber plastics that are being used for face masks. So that's quite a staggering kind of stat. And when I was an account manager for one of the largest UK water companies, my customers would often say to me and complain that the water was too expensive. They would say it falls out the sky and into the tap. You know, that was their view of how simple it was, and it should be cheaper. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. And that's, you know, one of the perceptions why I think water has such a low value in the UK, amongst other things. But every single litre of water that you use, regardless of whether you're brushing your teeth, showering or washing your clothes, it uses energy, chemicals, manpower, fuel. And just because it's gone down the plug hole doesn't mean that's the end of its journey. That's only half of its journey. Before it gets returned back to the environment, again, it requires treatment, chemicals, manpower, energy. And the link between water and energy and carbon is an intrinsic one. Where there's water, there's energy and there's carbon impact. Our blue planet. We call it the blue planet because 71% of the Earth's surface is water. Of that vast volume, 97% of it, it's too salty for us to drink. We can't do a huge amount with it. A further 2% is locked up in ice caps and glaciers. Again, you know, we can't do anything with that. So that leaves us with a really finite resource for everything else: industry, agriculture, and for us, for our day-to-day lives. So that's a message I want you to really kind of think about. It's a very finite resource. The next thing I want you to think about is, well, just take 10 seconds, put some stuff in the chat. If you want a drink of water, what do? Where do you get it from? Let's see what you say in chat. Do you go to the kitchen? Do you pull out some bottled water, God forbid, that you've bought? You're one of the 42%? Or do you stick your head under the tap? Yeah, so most of us are going to the tap. So we are very fortunate. That's the message I want to give. Now imagine your life was like this. Imagine that every single day you collected your water from a dirty, muddy puddle. You used an old plastic bottle to scrape it out, and the water contained bugs and bacteria that made you sick pretty much every day of your life. And that's the harsh reality for a lot of people on this planet. There is a child that dies of a water-related disease every 2 minutes on planet Earth, on our great blue planet, every 2 minutes. And if that's not bad enough, so 84 million people don't have access to water. That's 1 in 9 people on the planet. 1 in 3 don't have access to clean sanitation. And if those stats aren't bad enough, just look at that image. Very often, the duty of collecting water falls to the women of the household. And each day they have to walk for miles. Now, they're often young ladies about to go into adulthood. Sometimes they're even the young girls. But it's ladies in the house who are not earning an income for their family, or they're not being educated, and they often take the kids with them, so the kids aren't getting educated either. And next time, if you're lucky enough to get a holiday, next time you're dragging your suitcase around, complaining that the 20 kilograms is a bit heavy for you, that's what they carry on their head every day on average, and they walk absolutely miles, and that's just to get a drink of water. What do? We just turn the tap on. It's as simple as that. So we are very fortunate. Remember that, please. The next thing I want to talk about is how precious water is. And we're going to look at some global examples, because I do really believe we as a nation need to stop taking water for granted. We've taken it for granted for far too long. Has anybody heard of the Aral Sea before? Just pop a yes into the chat if you've heard about the Aral Sea, or a no perhaps if you haven't. While you're doing that, I'll just tell you a little bit about it. The Aral Sea was once a vast, thriving Asian lake. It was the 4th largest lake in the world, and absolutely, Stacey Dooley did some work on this. See that coming in on the chat. Commentary about this, and just to put it into context, the picture on the left is the Aral Sea at its prime. The picture on the right is to the west of England. That's the island of Ireland. And the reason I've put that picture together is that they are a very similar size, very similar length and breadth, to give you a feel for the size of the area that we are talking about. And this is what happened to the Aral Sea over a number of years. Water supplies were diverted to feed cotton farms, to fuel the demand for clothing and fashion. And without a doubt, little respect, little thought was given to water. And this is what it looks like now from space. The fisheries have collapsed. There's regular dust storms. There's a 40% decrease in local vegetation. And the prosperous fishing industry, it's been destroyed. Unemployment, economic hardship, population displacement, you name it. For those who've stayed around, poor health because of the pesticides that are in the dust storms. So it really has been a terrible outcome. And it's I've said it's a great example. I admit it's an extreme example, but boy, is it an example of how not to look after water. Okay. Anybody recognize this part of our blue planet? Again, just pop that into chat. So what we have here is the Red Sea, and then underneath the Red Sea is the River Nile. And on this image, you'll see the very bright green diamond type shape at the top. That's called the Nile Delta. And we've got about 150 miles of Mediterranean coastline. And at the bottom of that diamond, if you like, the slightly gray area, that's Cairo. And we've got about 100 miles from Cairo to the coast. So it's a vast area, and it's where the world gets a lot of its food produce from. It's a really rich agricultural region. Lots of worldwide food businesses rely on it. Some of the UK supermarkets still get products from that region. And 90% of the water that feeds the Nile Delta comes from Ethiopia. And it comes from 2 rivers. we have the White Nile in South Sudan and the Blue Nile. And the water that comes from the Blue Nile is 59% of the volume that ends up in the actual Nile Delta. And this is what's being built or happened, I should say. This is what's happening on the Blue Nile. It's called the Grand Renaissance Dam. It will be Africa's largest hydroelectric plant, 7th largest hydroelectric plant in the world. And I say happened, you know, it's well through its construction now, which started in 2011. And the worrying thing is that it's going to take about 10 years to fill up behind the dam. That picture shows the dam partially completed, but there's already restrictions in water flows to the Nile. Nature is no longer in control, and the Ethiopians and the Egyptians are in constant dialogue. The Egyptians are very concerned that because they don't have control, there'll not be enough water going into the Nile for the Nile to continue to be able to self-clean. So you'll have pesticides running off the agricultural areas. It's potentially going to contaminate the region. Disastrous for agriculture. Communities could be destroyed along with fisheries. You know, it's a kind of similar example to Aral Sea, potentially. It's going to have to be managed extremely carefully. Anybody recognize this particular picture? I'm just going to, as you're putting stuff into chat, perhaps just carry on going through this. Can you see a little difference in that particular image? And if you couldn't on that image, can you see a difference now from another angle? This is the Hoover Dam and Lake Mead, and it is absolutely vast. It supplies water to 25 million Americans in Arizona, Nevada, and California. And it also supplies energy to 8 million people. And there's been a huge change in the amount of water in Lake Mead. The Colorado River is today at an all-time low, and Lake Mead levels are at 35%. And there's two reasons: population growth and greed, and an increasing demand for water, electricity, which comes with that, and climate change. You know, California has been in prolonged periods of drought. So water demand is going up, and the amount of water that's available is going down. And there's a real risk very soon that the water level in Lake Mead will be below the water turbines, and that it won't be able to produce electricity. And that's going to be Vegas without any lights. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out for them. But a real, you know, it's a real example. Cape Town, South Africa. The government announced they were going to turn the water supply off for a day. And this was back in 2018 because they were simply going to run out of water. So the government announced day zero. But before they did that, they put an extensive communication campaign out with the population, and they were able to reduce the water consumption. And listen to this, this is staggering. 500 million litres per day were saved. They reduced the water consumption by half. That was half of what they were using. So you have to assume that that 5 million litres was being wasted. Agriculture wasn't set up in the right way. People were, you know, really were wasteful of water. But they started introducing water reduction targets. Restaurants would ask their customers not to flush the loos, kind of basic stuff like that. They saved 5 million litres of water. And then we're going to look at India finally. Now, severe droughts have really impacted India severely. Some cities, there's 21 in total, that are about to run out of their groundwater resources. And we're talking major cities here: Bangalore, New Delhi. In fact, Chennai, which was formerly Madras, that ran out of water last year. You might have seen it on the media. There were a lot of water trucks, water tankers coming in from outside the region to supply the city residents. There was, water crime, there was civil unrest, there was, real issues in terms of people trying to get water just to survive. And that's not to mention the impact of bringing water in from all those remote places, the carbon impact with doing that. So 40%, it's estimated that 40% of the population, more than 500 million people in India, will have no access to clean drinking water by 2030. So, it's a serious situation. So by now, you're probably thinking, God, Glenn's going on about the world. We're okay here because it's always raining. We don't need to worry here in the UK. Well, actually, that's not true. There's some parts of the UK where there's less water per person. Places like Egypt, Morocco, Syria, Sudan, there's less water per person in the UK than there are in those areas. And why is that the case? Well, quite simply, the first thing is climate change. That's absolutely having an impact here on us in the UK. And when it rains, boy, it doesn't half rain, and often it's in the early or the late summer months. And the problem with that is when it rains like that, the water wholesalers can't capture that large volume of water. It doesn't recharge the groundwater system. It's out to the river, it's out to sea, and we're getting large volumes of water, but they're in short, sharp bursts, so we can't actually do anything with it. Cast your mind back to some of the floods, Bodcastle, Morpeth, York, Carlisle. This stuff is getting more and more real and happening more regularly. Winters are becoming drier too, and as a result of that, UK water companies are having to increase and use hosepipe bans more frequently. This year, we've had our 9th hottest summer on record, the hottest since 2018. Heathrow recorded a staggering 32.2 degrees. And these are some of the images from around the UK back in 2008 and 2019. And just to put that into perspective, this is the Lake District. Just keep your eye on that time lapse. I'm not making this stuff up. This was Ullswater. This is what happened in the Lake District. So it's having a real impact on the availability of water in the UK. Now, one of the other things that is causing us a concern is that the population is growing in the UK. Between 1960 and 2000, the population grew by 6.5 million. Between 2000 and 2020, it had grown by a further, an increase of 8.5 million. So previously it was 6.5 million in a 40-year period, and we've just seen 8.5 million in a 20-year period. And the issue with this, particularly with our consumerism and our kind of throwaway society, is that is increasing demand for food, products, services. It's expected that water demand is going to increase by 30% by 2050, and the demand for energy and food by 50% by 2050. And quite simply, there's less water to go around. Now, Sir James Bevan, from the chief exec of the Environment Agency, he talks about each water company having long-term plans, and every single water company in the UK has something similar that's in their long-term plans. And it's a graph, that shows, I'm just going to use my hands to do this, so it shows water demand, demand for water increasing like that, and availability of water going down like that. And where those two things cross, James Bevan calls it the jaws of death. That's the point at which in the UK we run out of water. And that's probably around about 20 years away, but don't let that 20 years timescale kid you on. Some areas are having problems now. Some areas around the Southampton area, there's been drought orders in place over the winter. So this is real, it's affecting parts of the UK now. Okay, I want to turn to chat again, please. And I'd like you to have a think about how much water do you think you use or the average person uses in the UK? Let's start to see some of that go into the chat function, please. Just to put that into context, that's a prop, it's a litre bottle of water. So how many of those do you use a day? Okay, so David saying 8, there's 20, there's 10. Okay, cubic meters per annum. Okay, a big range there. We're actually on average using 140 litres per person per day. The average UK household of 4 people uses 360 litres per day. You know, it's a staggering number. And remember what I said early on in this presentation is that it's our responsibility. We can make choices. We've got 100% ability to make choices. We've got 100% responsibility to make the right choices. So what I want to share with you now is some of the things that we can do. But I want to do this by just sharing with you some of the statistics as to what is going on here in the UK right now. 1 in 3 people still leave the tap running when they are cleaning their teeth. 1 in 3. Now that's wasting 6 litres per minute. If every adult in the UK, let's assume they clean their teeth in accordance with NHS guidelines twice a day for 2 minutes. If the entire adult population turned the tap off when brushing their teeth, we'd have enough water saved to supply 500,000 homes, or return that vast amount of water back to the environment, or not take it from the environment in the first place. And remember, we are leaders. You know, the minute we influence another human being, no matter what we're doing, we're leading. And that's particularly true with our kids. So make sure that your kids see good behaviors, because they're going to copy what you do. Equally, if you're leaving the tap running, it's likely they'll do the same. Take a shower. Swap a shower for your bath. An efficient bath, 80 litres perhaps, maybe a little bit less. A normal shower, average of about 9 litres per minute. So if you're showering for about 5 minutes, it's only about 45 litres. Health warning, if you're using a power shower, if you're staying in longer than 5 minutes, you might actually be using more than a bath. And for all you budding Frank Sinatras or Whitney Houstons out there, just be a little bit quicker in the shower. A YouGov survey last year showed that 49% of the UK population shower once a day, 6% shower twice a day. I'm not sure what the other 45% are doing. Some will be using baths, but I suspect some of them are not as clean as you would like. But that's equivalent, the number of showers in the UK per day, to 31.6 million showers taking place every day in the UK. And if we just shaved 1 minute of our shower time, that would be enough water saved to supply or return to the environment the equivalent of 800,000 homes worth of water demand. And yeah, use a bit less. If you can see this measurer, I'll put it up against my arm so you can see the kind of depth of it. If you think that's an acceptable depth for a bath, that's actually up to there, 165 litres. You're already using more water than the average person in the UK if you're taking a bath like that. If you take just an inch out of your bath, just reduce it by an inch, that will save 5 to 6 litres. And avoid wasteful top-ups. And what I mean by this is we've all got busy lives. Often what we find we do is we'll put the plug in the bath, start the bath running, and then we'll wander off and come back 2, 3, 5 minutes later, depending on how deep you have your bath. But I bet you at some point you'll have been stood in the bath with your ankles burning, deciding on whether or not to dip your bare backside into that hot, steamy water, or do you put some more cold in to make it cool down a little bit? Or if you've put too much cold in the first place, you actually put a bit more hot in. You might even have to go and boil the kettle. Have any of you done that before? It's absolutely wasteful. So avoid those wasteful top-ups and avoid running the tap. You know, if you run the tap to an acceptable warm level before you put the plug in, that's going to waste about 3.5 litres. If you run the tap in the summer, so it gets to a nice chilled temperature to drink, that can waste as much as 10 litres of water. It's important, simple stuff this, but put the plug in. If you fill the sink, you're going to use 6 to 8 litres of water to wash your dishes. If you wash your dishes with the tap running and going down the plug hole, you'll use the same volume per minute, 6 to 8 litres per minute. So dishwasher, you know, if you can afford one, that's great. They're going to use around 15 litres for a modern dishwasher. A great way to save water, but make sure it's filled to the top before you put it on. And that's exactly the same for your home washing. Make sure your washing machine is absolutely loaded up. And look at the type of appliances you buy. Look at the energy rating on them as well. And if you're waiting around for a drink while you're doing the washing, here's something to think about. I've been to friends' houses before, and I've been to customers' premises where they ask me if I would like a drink. And the first thing they do is they take the kettle, they pour the contents of the kettle down the sink, and then they refill it and put it on boil. What's the point of ditching that water down the sink in the first instance? It might have some latent heat in it. It's certainly, if it's been in the kettle, going to be of good quality. So, you know, if you're going to boil water for yourself, just make sure that you're putting the amount that you need in so that somebody else isn't chucking what you leave spare down the drain at a later time. And if you do want that, you know, cold drink, rather than leave the tap running, as I was talking about earlier, just put some in the fridge in a jug. It's as simple as that. Here's something to get your head around. 1 in 10 toilets in the UK is leaking. And that's come from a well-known organisation discussed water-wise. They look at what they call leaky loos. And it's about 1 in 10 toilets around the UK leaking. And if you think about houses that are being built these days, often there's a downstairs loo, there's en suites, and it's the modern toilets. And it's because of the cheap internal fittings. And when I say leaking, I don't mean flooding out on the floor. I mean, water is slowly trickling down the back of the pan. So, you know, do a check on your loo, rip a single piece of toilet paper off, put it on the back of the pan. And if it gets soaked through water percolating down, you know you've got a leaky loo. Please stop using the toilet as a rubbish bin. You know, 1/3 of all water used in the home is for toilet flushing. A lot of it is by people, you know, just throwing a bit of rubbish in the toilet, the odd tissue here and there. Don't put what the supermarkets will call flushables down there. They are non-flushables. You know, kitchen paper, your bounce type of stuff, that's not really to go down the loo. It will block the sewer system, and the carbon footprint associated with the water companies having to come out to sort the, you know, the fatbergs, the stuff that goes on in the sewers is significant, not to mention the disruption. So please stop using the loo as a bin. So there's loads of stuff that you can do as an individual. And perhaps when we get talking, we can, maybe some of you can have a think about some of the things you may choose to pledge to reduce your own water consumption going forward. And you'd think it would be different in business, but just a very quick example, I'm going to finish in a couple of minutes, is that imagine a hotel chain that invests in new water fittings. It puts new water efficient shower heads in, and it puts in new water efficient taps. This is a true story. The cleaners, however, this is a 100-bed hotel. The first thing they do when they go into that hotel is they go into the bathroom. They flush the loo, then they whiz some bleach around the rim of the loo, and then they put the plug in the bath take out the dirty towels, turn the shower to full hot setting, and turn the shower on. They then exit the bathroom, closing the door behind them, and go about cleaning the room and making the bed up. They then revisit the bathroom after they've made the bed up, open up the bathroom door, it's full of condensate. They let all that hot water down the plug. They use the customer's old dirty towels to wipe down the tiles, the mirrors, the toilet seat, the floor, and they exit the room with a final flush of the loo to get rid of the bleach that they put in earlier. And they do that room after room after room. So the hotel may well have invested, but what I'm trying to do tonight is win your hearts and minds. And that hotel company didn't win the hearts and minds of their people. They didn't tell their people why it was so important that as a hotel chain, they needed to save water. It's vital. You know, there is no planet B. That is clear. And hopefully tonight I've got you thinking a little bit differently about water. I hope you'll start to view and value it differently from this point on. And final question, if you knew you could do more to reduce your own personal water consumption, what would you do? And let's, you know, a final thought to leave you with, let's make sure we leave water supplies in this country for future generations and for our kids. So let me just stop that screen share. Hopefully you found that, I'm just going to take that up to the top as well. Hopefully you found that of interest.
Fabulous. Thanks ever so much, Glenn. I think you've certainly won a few hearts and minds. Perhaps some recap, some reassurance we're doing some good things, but pretty sure some of us need to do a whole lot more as well. Let me just stop the recording as we go into kind